170, and it's the quickest production car in the world. Yes, that's right. It does 0 to 60 in 1.66 seconds, which makes it quicker than a Tesla Plaid and even the multi-million-dollar Rimac Nevera. So what is the Demon 170 actually like to drive? And can it truly reach 1.66 seconds to 60 on the street? Or was that just a fluke, 1 in a million with perfect conditions? Well, today we're gonna test out both of those. Under the hood of the Demon 170 is a 6.2-liter supercharged V8 making 1,025 horsepower and 945 pound-feet of torque. Now, it's not just a souped-up Demon engine with some different tuning. In fact, really the only similarities are the crankshaft. We've got upgraded pistons, upgraded rods. We've even got a 3-liter supercharger, brand new for the car, so it can withstand that ridiculous horsepower gain. Can we actually do 0 to 60 in 1.66 seconds? Let's find out. Let's do a series of launch controls and see what the best 0 to 60 time we can achieve on the street with the Demon 170. Oh my God. Holy crap. Honestly, the traction control did a fantastic job at mitigating wheel spin, and we've got some really cool technology with the trans brake in the performance pages that I'll show you in a bit. But let's see. What was the best 0 to 60 time I achieved so far? So we're going into the performance pages, and we are looking the best yet, 3.3 seconds. That's almost double 1.66 seconds. So the answer is, obviously, I could get a little bit better of a launch out of this thing, but on the street, you'd be lucky to get better than 2.7 seconds. You're gonna need a fully prepped drag strip with a perfect launch, perfect DA, really warmed up tires, maybe even tire warmers to achieve that 1.66 seconds. So if you're racing off a stoplight, probably don't race a Tesla Plaid or a Porsche Turbo S, because 9 times out of 10, you probably are going to lose. But after that, the acceleration is absolutely mind-boggling in this thing. So what is the Demon 170? Well, it's the final of the last call Dodges. Where does the 170 come from? Well, 170 proof equates to 85% alcohol, which is in reference to E85, the fuel that this runs on. E85 you can get at many local gas stations, and that brings the power up to 1,025 horsepower and 945 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you run it on 91 or 93, you're getting 900 horsepower and 810 pound-feet of torque, which begs the question, can you compare this car's speed to every other street car when every car other than a Koenigsegg with the power upgrade is running 91 or 93 gas, and this is running on E85. I go back and forth on that, honestly, because this is from the factory. You can go ahead and take it to the gas station, and they've got this flex fuel technology, which is really cool. It doesn't matter if you've got 8 gallons of 91. If you want to put E85 in the car, the computer system will adjust the power, adjust the timing to make sure that the engine is just right performance-wise for the mix of E85 and 91. So you don't have to drain it all the way and then go to the gas station and fill up on E85. Although if you do so, that will give you the most amount of power. The Demon 170 has a factory option for a parachute. Now, technically, the car can't legally be delivered to customers with the parachute, but you can go to Dodge's Direct Connection website, which is basically Dodge's parts, and buy a parachute to put on the back of your 170 from the factory. The reason being is, technically, per NHRA rules, this car is illegal because it has to have a parachute if it runs under a 9-second quarter mile or over 150 miles an hour. And this runs an 8.9 second quarter mile at 151 miles an hour in perfect conditions, which breaks both of those rules. So you need a parachute. The other crazy thing about the Demon 170 is it comes with only one seat. Yes, that's right. From the factory, all you get is the driver's seat. You have to option in for $2,000 the passenger seat and the rear seat. Honestly, I think it's kind of insane that you have to pay $2,000 to have somebody sit next to you, but not as insane as this next option. If you want a sunroof, which doesn't really make any sense in a drag car, you want it to be as light as possible, putting the center of mass up here, increasing it, going upwards because you have a big heavy sunroof doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Well, Dodge is charging $10,000 for it. Now, they gave an interesting explanation in a Jay Leno's Garage video. That's because they lose money on every single carbon fiber wheel package that they sell. Because they don't directly manufacture the carbon fiber wheels, they're purchasing them from another company, it's an $11,500 option. Now, Dodge explains that because the carbon fiber lips are in carbon, the barrels are obviously not in carbon, the center of gravity of the wheel is close to the center of the wheel, which allegedly allows it to spin faster and achieve a 60-foot time of just 1.2 seconds, which is unbelievably impressive. But because they have to buy the parts from somebody else, even though they're charging $11,500, they're losing money on each set of wheels, so they're trying to recoup some of the cost with a ridiculous $10,000 option. Now, another one of the coolest features of this car is how the Generation 2 trans brake works. Now, check this out. As you can see on the screen, my best 0 to 60 time was 3.3 seconds. With the previous owner, the best time was 4.8 seconds. So clearly, even though he's had the car for a bit, it's very hard to achieve that 1.66 seconds. Now, if we go down here, you'll see a series of buttons. We've got the SRT button. That'll bring up different driving modes that you can choose from, as well as a really cool mode called the chiller. If you activate the chiller, it actually uses the vehicle's air conditioning to cool the intercooler for the supercharger in order to feed cooler air into the engine, which I think is really cool. Then, of course, we have a launch button down here, but check this out. When we click trans brake, up on the screen pops this really cool graph. And the trans brake actually allows you to dial in the torque every 1/10 of a second over time. C is a preset mode in case you're on a slippery surface. So you can see the blue line is the maximum available torque, looks like about 900. B gives you a little bit more of an aggressive launch, and then A, check this out. It's saying we can go all the way up to 1,100 pound-feet of torque within 0.1 seconds after the launch. You can also change the launch RPM right there, but the level of customizability here is really, really cool that you can change all that over time. We can also adjust the launch control settings right here, which is neat as well. Now, on the outside, there's a few key ways to differentiate the Demon 170 from a standard Demon or just a normal Hellcat. The easiest way to tell is they've gotten rid of the flared fenders in the front, but they've kept them in the rear. The reason being is Dodge saved 16 pounds by getting rid of the front fender flares. It also means you can put narrower tires in the front without making the wheel gap look crazy, because you don't need all that traction in the front. This vehicle isn't meant for going around turns, it's meant for going in a straight line as fast as possible. Now, the reason that saving weight up front is very important is because off the line, it needs that weight transfer from the front to the rear to load up those rear tires and launch itself off the line. Now, speaking of rear tires, it's got 18-inch wheels in the front, 245 section, but in the rear it actually has smaller 17-inch wheels with 315 section tires. That bigger sidewall allows for more compression and more traction off the line. They also had to revise the suspension to handle that weight transfer, as well as beef up the drive shaft so that it didn't explode upon launch. That's the easiest way to tell. Then if you look closer, the massive scoop that rams air into that intake, sucks it into the engine. It actually has something that says alcohol injected on it, a little logo. That's a nod to E85. Now, if you look at the side, which is a little bit more subtle, but if you know what you're looking for, it's really not that subtle at all, you'll see the Demon emblem, but the eye of the Demon is yellow. That's because E85 is created from corn, and corn is yellow. It also says 170 right below the Demon badge, so that's a little bit of an easier tell. If you're really astute, you can see if they've optioned those $11,500 carbon fiber wheels, but other than that, it does pretty much look like a standard Hellcat or a Demon. Now, it starts at a base price of $96,666, the 666, because it is a Demon. Getting it for that is difficult. The owner of this car, I've got to give a huge shout out to OC Motivator for making this video possible. I've got a link in the description to his YouTube channel as well as his Instagram, so make sure to give him a follow because this thing is absolutely epic. And he's got a cool YouTube channel dedicated to these cars, and I hear he's getting something pretty cool soon. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But it is really hard to get these at MSRP. If you look for used ones, because there's only 3,000 of them coming to the US, One sold recently on Cars and Bids for $185,000, and there's some listed for $220,000, even $300,000. When they first came out, people were trying to get 300 grand for these, which is a bit absurd if you're asking me, but it is a limited edition car, so part of me gets it. Nothing about the driving experience to me feels like this is a $300,000 car. I will say though, for 96 grand, if you bought this complete base, stripped out, it is a ridiculous amount of performance for the money. 1,025 horsepower, 8.9 in the quarter mile. No, you're not gonna achieve that 99% of the time, but it gives you something to work for, to build up your drag racing experience and to optimize temperatures, figure out the best drag strip to do it at, and see if you can break into the 8s in this vehicle. Now, what is it actually like to drive? It's actually surprisingly civilized at normal speeds. We've got an 8-speed automatic transmission. Of course, you've got paddles mounted to the steering wheel. It's nice, it's comfortable in here. It doesn't have harsh suspension like a supercar and like pretty much every other car that can do 0 to 60 in 1.66 seconds, like a Rimac Nevera, which actually is 1.75. This is faster than a multi-million-dollar hypercar, which is pretty impressive. But it rides really nice. The seats are comfortable. We've got Alcantara on the steering wheel, carbon fiber throughout the interior. We've got Bluetooth speakers. I mean, it rides and drives like a normal Dodge. You're not going to be able to corner as fast because you've got the skinny tires, and of course you've got the big sidewall in the back, so those are gonna flex around turns, but you're not gonna try to drive this really fast in the canyons anyways with a rear wheel drive 1,025 horsepower car. Overall, I'm impressed with the way it drives. It's really comfortable. The traction gets put down a lot better than I was expecting. I thought it was just gonna do burnouts for days, get absolutely no traction, and I was gonna run a 6-second 0 to 60. The fact it did a 3.3 is a lot better than I was expecting. I know some people are gonna be complaining, dude, that's not even close to what you can achieve in this car. Well, I tried a multitude of times on the street, not a prep drag surface, and it is a lot harder than you think to get a perfect 0 to 60 in this vehicle. That is more in line with what you're expecting for your average Demon owner to come and accelerate off the line. That's most likely what they're going to get 0 to 60 wise. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you next video.